Okay, firstly, a massive thank you to both Ty and Ellen for taking part in this. I appreciate you making the time, especially on a Sunday. Let's dive straight in. What is it that a former rugby playing marketing South African, a successful author and TV guy from Portland, and a musician, engineer, producer extraordinaire from New York have in common? And I think the answer is Band-Maid, but specifically why? So Ty, I want to bring you in here. What is it that you think is responsible for this group captivating and capturing the imagination, minds, hearts of people from incredibly diverse backgrounds, demographically, financially, culturally? What do you think that is?
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of things. The obvious answer is the music is great. I think the less obvious answer is some bands, when you discover them, it feels like a secret that only a few people know, and you feel like you've been inducted into this like secret world. I remember in high school, I first listened to the Rush album Permanent Waves, and I was like, why have I never heard this before? Why, this is the most amazing thing that has ever happened to me. And there was like 7 other guys in my high school who liked Rush. And so like immediately there was like this bond between us that we knew a secret that nobody else knew. And I get the same sense with Band-Maid, that like when you meet someone else who's into Band-Maid, like you immediately know there's something about them, that like there's something about the kind of music they like and the kinds of things that are interesting to them that are, like I said, it's like a shared secret. And then the other thing for me is, like Rush, or other bands that got into after that, there's like this layering to the depth of the music. Like if you just want a cool tune that you can kind of bop to and has a good hook, Band-Maid can give you that. If you really like to do a deep dive on music theory and why things work the way that they do and interesting changes in the music as the music progresses, that's there too. So like if you're just into Tom Sawyer, Rush is great. But if you really want to do a deep dive on all the crazy prog stuff that they do, you can do that. Like it appeals to a broad range of musical sophistication, I think.
So you're saying basically that there's this like joining up of the elite music snobs of the world, but also the casual listener.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. And Ellen, let's bring you in here as well. Just off the back of that, what do you think it is?
There's one thing I think that really stands out. Not even the music stuff, any of that stuff. Band-Maid has absolutely no ego with any of the members. They treat every fan like they're the greatest thing in the world. That's why they call them masters and princesses, right? It's that idea that they're serving you and you feel like they are serving you straight up. And that is the main ingredient to get a wide, vast variety of fans, because no matter who you are, you feel like they're doing it for you. They're not doing it for themselves. You don't feel that at all. You feel like they are legitimately trying to entertain you, and that's their sole purpose, and they love sharing their music with you, and they just do whatever they can to please all their fans. I think that's what brings everybody together.
Something I never thought about, and that's one of the reasons I wanted you here, Ellen. I mean, from my side, I'm I would still say, a new inductee into Band-Maid music, and I know that you and you know, kind of the whole Daikade crew and on your channel, you look at a lot of different Japanese music. You're much more in depth with it along the fan base, the storylines, the music and stuff. So that's like a perspective I've never had. So I find that really interesting. For me, I think it's actually 2 things. I've given this quite a lot of thought. I think that as time moves on, music evolves, and as does the technology that you can use to create it. So basically right now, you could have a 14-year-old in a bedroom making an entire album without using a single instrument. That comes with its pros and cons, right? Because the pro is more people are able to have an outlet for their creativity. You find some real gems. We've seen these artists. I mean, even if you look at a Billie Eilish, for example, came from the bedroom with her brother kind of creating music, whether you like it or not, it's where it came from. And that necessarily wouldn't have happened through the traditional label way. The problem with that is, with so many people making music, I think that the quality is not going to be as great. It's obvious. And that's why you hear a lot of the older generation going, well, in my day, you had to actually be able to sing. You couldn't use auto-tune. You had to get it right first take. You were recording onto tape. And they're right. Like, the older generation is right. And I think as a result of those 2 things, there has been, at least in my experience talking to older fans, there's been this kind of loss of faith in modern day music, particularly within hard rock, kind of rock and roll, classic rock. And I think Band-Maid, with their ability, has reinvigorated that. I think a lot of older fans have gone, holy shit, you know what? Not just great songs, catchy songs, they can play. Like, this is no joke.
I was going to say, that's, I think, why a lot of people my age find themselves, like, when you hear Band-Maid, you're like, this is the thing that I've been missing. I was, last night, it was my wife's birthday party, and we were hanging out with some friends, and wound up listening to the Band-Maid song, Take Me Higher. And I'm like, this is like one of the coolest songs of 1986, right? It's got that, like, it's got that 80s rock vibe, and the guitar has that sort of 80s kind of crunch to it. And I'm like, I thought this kind of music had disappeared from the world. And this is the music of my teenage years. And then you hear it and you're like, if I had heard this in 86, it would have been like my favorite song that year.
Well, it kind of further backs it up, because, you know, that's the older generation taken care of. And my question then to myself was, well, the younger generation. Now, I know, since I was kind of freshly into high school, there has been an increasing desire, particularly among a large part of the youth, to know more about Asia, becoming obsessed with things like anime, all different kinds of culture, food, fashion, music. And I think that still exists. I think there's like more desire to know more about the world. It's a very big place, and we're starting to mentally open ourselves up to the idea of travel more and things like that. And I think that young music fans who are into rock and classic rock and things like that, coupled with this desire to know more about kind of Japanese culture, that's brought them in. And now the jackpot between that is if you find like a mom or a dad and a son or a daughter in the same house, kind of connecting with this group for different reasons and kind of sharing those experiences. Because Alan, and you can comment on this, I know you went to a string of the shows, super jealous. I was going to say not jealous at all, but I can't hide it. I'm so jealous, it's unbelievable. But you were showing a lot of footage and you were showing a lot of photos, and I noticed this distinct kind of like older generation, younger generation, and all just mixed together enjoying the music. And that's what I saw from like some of the limited footage. Obviously, I don't want to watch too much and take away from some of the songs I want to listen to. But what do you think about that? What's your comments on kind of being there and seeing that?
As a band that like solely serves you as the listener, that attracts people with the same mentality. So something that was shocking to me that I've never experienced, and I'm going to be upfront right now, I hate going to live shows. I've always have hated going to them. They're boring as fuck for me. I don't want to do it. I'm sorry, are we allowed to swear?
You can do whatever you want,
okay, Okay. I just want to make sure. And what was I saying? So for me, every experience of going to a concert has been boring. All I could think about is how I want to be on the stage. I was also younger when I went to the concert. So this was my first time going to concerts and actually enjoying every aspect of the experience, because since Band-Maid are the way they are, where they're just no ego, that band that just includes everybody. When you were waiting in line, for the most part, a majority of the fans were so nice, they're so giving, and they're the only reason why I was at so many shows. They gave me tickets to those shows. Like, I've never had a band like fan base help out other fans get there that couldn't get there. Like, we know about Mr. Rock and Roll, people paid for him to get to Dallas or helped him out. I mean, what other fan base goes out of their way to ensure that people go to the shows? And I planned on going to one show, and I ended up at 7. And that was all because of the fans of Band-Maid. It's all because of everybody that's just there to support the band, because they see how the band supports them. They want to be there. Everybody wants to contribute, and everyone wants to be there to help this fan base get bigger. I've never seen a fan base like really try to implement that positive perspective instead of that toxic one we've seen with other fan bases where they exclude people or they gatekeep it. Band-Maid's fans, for the most part, are not gatekeeping. And even if you are on the fence like I was when I first listened to Band-Maid in the very beginning, I was on the fence. People still were like, hey, well, check out this one, Alan. And eventually Unseen World is the one that sold me in. And then now I like older songs now. But but I mean, that's crazy. Like, to see something like that, I've never experienced that before at a show ever.
I think it's important. I mean, you're talking to one person who's been to 7 shows, and us two haven't been to any, Ty. So we got some catching up to do on that.
I know he definitely flexed on us. Though,
oh,
man.
so hard.
I feel very very put in my place right now.
Be honest with you, Alan, our friendship is on tethers here, buddy.
You guys could have went to this show. All you had to do is be like, man, I really want to go. Fans would have been like, we're getting you there, Chase. I mean, there was a fan that
I need a job to come back to, I need to figure it out.
Very, very true. On the personal side thing is like, it's rough trying to make sure everything's set up financially. So I feel you on the job aspect, but it's crazy. They flew somebody from Japan like out there to go see Band-Maid. That's crazy.
That's
like to make sure that was going to be taken care of.
This is a quick question I want to ask, and I want to divide it. So Alan, you can comment on one part, and Ty, hopefully you on the other. Alan, I don't know if you had said this or if I kind of heard it through the grapevine, so you can confirm or deny if it's true or not. But Band-Maid's presence and kind of love, is that much bigger in places like the States than it is back in Japan? Is that because I saw a bit of that conversation happening, and then afterwards, Ty, why do you think it is like that a band who isn't primarily English speaking has been able to kind of dominate and captivate? Because it is a little bit of, and not in a negative way, it is a little bit of something that's different, is kind of harder to get into, but they seem to have had no issues. So Alan, you go for that first, I think.
Oh man, there's so many reasons why so they do have, to me, in my opinion, and this is why I didn't like them in the beginning. They did have more of a Western sound. All right. And I would, there's a couple songs. I think I wasn't a huge fan of Puzzle when it first came out, like other people were. I wasn't a huge fan of those songs. So I'm like, but then like, as I realized how great they were, I went back. Now I realize like, oh man, those songs are phenomenal. And they're actually they transcend that classic rock. Actually, they're way more in depth than I thought it was originally. So back to your question though, I think it feeds a hunger that you were just talking about, Ty. Like what Ty was saying, he thought it was gone. So, and then we realize it's there. You know what I mean? It's actually coming back up. And I think that goes along with all Japanese bands. They're bringing back something that people thought was gone and just like forgotten about. But they're doing it in a refreshed, unique way. I didn't think with them singing in Japanese that offers the uniqueness, but they still do English. There's still parts to sing along to, because there's some Japanese bands that just go completely Japanese. It's hard to sing along with, but they still have the choruses you can sing with. They still have that traditional hard rock sound with technical innovations going on and really good music writing. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that the writing that Konami does in the band is just phenomenal. And I think that's what really brings people in, because she can bring it down to an average listener level, or you can get as deep as a musician level. And that's where I sit. I think more or less I love it because of the music writing more than anything else, where like an average listener can just enjoy it because they're like, I can go there and go, whoa, whoa. Like they can go out there and sing along, and it just brings everybody together, And I think that's why it's doing so well. And plus there's this fascination with the Japanese culture. Let's not lie to ourselves. There's an extreme fascination in the US, more than most, I would say, with that whole entire culture, just in general. But this makes it cool. I think Band-Maid makes it cool for you to listen to, right? It's not your normal anime stuff. It's like something outside of that. Like it's something more. And I think that might be another reason why maybe the US fan base is growing so significantly, because it's more accepted, I think, to a certain extent. You know what I mean? Because most of the time when I show somebody a Band-Maid song, I don't mention the name or nothing. Just show them a song. They're like, oh, that's a badass song. If I lead off with "This is Band-Maid," then it kind of, they're like, I don't know. I never tell anybody the name of the band ever. I just show them a song. I'm like, hey man, check out this song, and they're like, oh shit, that's fucking good. And I'll show them another one. Oh yeah, dude, I dig this. This is a badass riff. I'm like, what's their name? Band-Maid, and they're like, what? And then, but at that point, they're like, I don't care. Like, they're like, well, those 3 songs are amazing. So I don't know if that makes sense. If that kind of answers your question on that, but
absolutely. Ty, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I mean, I do think so. I've never been a person who cared much about lyrics. The music was always much more important to me. I mean, I like vocals, but I like vocals as a musical instrument. Like I kind of don't care what they're saying. So it doesn't bother me that I don't know what the words are. Like, Psyche's got a great voice. I like listening to her sing. What she's saying is kind of irrelevant to me. But there is a built-in limiter on that because for other fans, because like my wife likes Band-Maid fine, but like we'll be doing something. She's like, hey, put on some music. And she'll be like, hey, put on something I can sing along to. And what she's saying is don't put on Band-Maid. Right. And I think for some people not being able to sing along to the music pushes them out of it. And those people aren't wrong. It's just what are the things that you care about? And for me, like if I'm listening to a song and everything disappears except for the bass and drums, I'm still fine. Because like I'm so rhythm section focused that like, you know, people are like, oh, all the other tracks are gone. It's only bass and drums now. I didn't even notice that happened. I was just so into the bass line and the rhythm section. So everybody is into a different thing. And I have friends who like the only thing they give a shit about is lead guitar. That's the only thing they care about. I'll be like, have you noticed how great the bass player is? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I didn't even notice. I wasn't paying any attention to the guitar player's great.
Unfortunately, I think that's the case with most bassists. Bassists are a heavily neglected part of a band. It's interesting because we're all instrument players, right? So we all play at least one or more instruments to different kind of levels, and I think for somebody who doesn't play an instrument, to your point, Ty, your wife wants to sing along. Is she an instrument player?
Yeah, she plays piano.
Okay, so that's interesting. So with them not having kind of keys as a main function, like that's probably why she's latching onto the vocals. Because I think traditionally, you know, you hear radio when you grow up, you listen to kind of mainstream music, rock and roll records, whatever it is. You're latching onto vocals and melody before you understand and can appreciate the instrumentation fully. So I think when you start to pick up an instrument, you gravitate towards that. I listen immediately for the guitar. It's just something that I latch onto. I have trained myself and practiced very hard, and I don't get it right a lot of the time, to sit back and go, let me listen to guitar last, because there's so much else going on. And that's one of the reasons I kind of wanted to start doing this reaction channel in the first place.
I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think Band-Maid would have already made it if it was all in English. Yeah. I really do. If it was all English lyrics, I guarantee you, I know people don't want to hear that, but if I'm being honest, that's the one thing that's a really big thing holding them back. And I know a lot of the enthusiasts are going to be like, oh, but that's the style. I love it. I'm like, but for being honest, they would be at the warning level already if they had English lyrics, where the warning's all English, right? They're from Mexico, and then they're blown up, but it's a very similar hard rock style. They have similar vibes, you know, way different, of course, but one's really classic hard rock. I feel like the warning's more classic, where Band-Maid's way more progressive and satisfies all the musical elements that people love. But they both have their thing and they're really good at it. But the biggest thing is the warning can go, they're going further because everything's in English, where Band-Maid, not so much. So it's a little bit harder to get, you know, like you were just saying, like your wife was kind of on the fence with it because of the lyrics or what I can't sing along to. And I think that is a big factor that's holding Band-Maid back.
That's been a comment that I've seen quite a lot with, there was a band that I did a couple of reactions to called Ex-Japan. And, you know, musically, they have a drummer who is kind of not the same species as us. He's a great drummer. Is he the best drummer in the world? No, but he's an incredible artist, very well respected, can play piano, can write, can do everything, like just a complete creative soul. That's the best way to describe him. And a lot of the criticism that they've had, and actually a comment from, I think it was Gene Simmons, said if they were an English band, they would have been kind of as big as Kiss, if not bigger, you know? And, you know, that's a good kind of talking point to go with this is what's next for them, because they can continue to make great music, and they will do. But you do find that these bands kind of hit these speed bumps, if you will, in terms of growth, global growth. And you can kind of keep pushing. It does feel like the more people I talk to, the more I don't have to introduce them. People know who Band-Maid are. They either know of them, or they've heard a couple songs, or they are absolute avid, rabid fans. So what's next for them to kind of push this growth? Is it just more touring? Is it just more writing? Is it more the same?
Well, people are starting to accept non-lyric, like non-English lyrics. There is definitely a transition of people that are just getting over it. I will admit there is that happening, but it's still at a slow rate. And Yoshiki, the drummer you're talking about, he is a really big promoter of Japanese music. And with his new project, The Last Rock Stars, they had Band-Maid on there to kind of expand their fan base. Because Yoshiki and, oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. But The Last Rock Stars, this band, this super group that just played over here, they sold out. They sold out their 4 shows, and then they had Band-Maid came on afterwards, which was a big thing. And so that will help them a lot. So this is where my point gets disproven about the English lyrics, right? So that band, the Last Rock Stars, are playing some Japanese more lyrics, but they do have English involved also. But they have a rabid fan base where they're selling out shows when they come to the U.S. So I could be completely wrong, but I still think it's still Roadblock. It's the difference between having 500,000 to 2 million fans to 10 million, If they really want to do the world domination, you want millions and millions, that's where I think that you have to have the English lyrics. But if you don't, I think they'll get 1 million followers. They'll get 2 million followers maybe. But it depends on what you see success as also. So I don't know. I do think there's a transition there, but
I agree with that. It's what do you see success as? I mean, I know that the ambition, I know at least the public persona of Miku is very ambitious, right? That, want to be the biggest band in the world, that whole thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I also think as a Rush fan, there's nothing wrong with having a fervent but not gigantic fan base, right? There's nothing like you can have a great career. I mean, Rush has 37 platinum albums. I mean, and they have 2 songs that get played on classic rock stations, and that's it. And, most people you meet who are rock fans are not also Rush fans. And that's okay. And I think if Band-Maid winds up as incredibly well-respected in the musical community with an incredibly fervent fan base and isn't as big as Van Halen, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a great life to have as a musician. I mean, I think most musicians would cut off their left leg for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, listen, just about any musician would. I think you're dead right with that. There's when you're starting out as a band, there's this level of kind of we need to make money if we want to keep the machine moving. But they are well past that, of course. And now it's a little bit of their destinies in their own hands. We talk about world domination, obviously, with the song, with what they want to do. But I do think you're right in terms of having that fan base and having a fan base. And I hate using this word because it is thrown around too generously, but having a fan base that isn't toxic, that is welcoming, that is kind of supportive. And if there's any frustration that I've received from Band-Maid fans, it's excitement. It's the same thing that people in my other half, B, she'll watch a reaction I've done for the first time. She'll try not watch the song and then she'll watch the reaction. And I'll pause. I'm trying to count the bars and I hit a pause button and she's like, oh God, he has no idea what's coming. God, it's going to be so good. That's the only level of frustration, if I can say it, that I've had from Band-Maid fans. It's been really positive. It's been a great experience. And this is another good point is we know how. I don't think there's a discussion anymore about how valuable reaction channels can be for artists, musicians. It's free marketing, it's free PR, and certain labels have started to work with channels to make sure that they get the songs a bit earlier. It's kind of this give and take, so you get to feel like you're getting a first look and you're part of that exclusive club. And some of them are going as far as unblocking them so that you can monetize and do stuff like that. And how important or how big do you think reaction channels have been for Band-Maid's success? If you look at a world before that, do you think they would still be where they are now? And we know that the quality of music is not the thing we're addressing here. We're just talking about kind of global knowledge. How important do you think it's been for these channels to spread them out?
Doesn't Band-Maid exist because of somebody promoting them on Facebook or something? Isn't that the story that somebody promoted their Thrill video on Facebook and that's the reason the management company kept the band going? Because I don't know the exact details of the story, but I know it was early on. It was when they made the Thrill video, and some classic rock station or some rock DJ posted the video on his Facebook page, and within a couple of days, it had 2 million views.
Interesting.
So
I had no idea about that, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm probably getting some of the details wrong, but I know that there is a story about that they had done the first album. It had not done as well as the management company wanted it to do. And they made the Thrill video. And this guy, I think it was a DJ, but he found it and was like, oh, this is really cool. Promoted it on his Facebook page. And then that video blew up and they were like, oh, the management company's like, well, let's keep this going. Let's see if we can keep this going. And that's why Band-Maid exists today.
Well, I mean, Alan, you're in this. You do a lot of these videos. You've done probably a lot more than I have, and you've been much more closely connected to the band. talk about the 7 degrees, or you're much closer to the band and the management. You've had conversations with people who've, kind of been part of at least helping organize some of the shows and stuff. What is their take, do you think, on kind of the channels, and what do you think that their level of awareness has been because of reaction channels?
Well, going to the reaction side of things, there is a core audience in the Band-Maid group, right, that will comment on every single reaction channel, which is super positive. That's a super positive thing. You know why? We were just talked about before we started this podcast. When you get positive confirmation, when you put up a video, when you see views coming in, what does it make you do? Want to do more Band-Maid songs, right? So, and I think that snowball effect with the fans is really powerful. And this is why we're seeing rabid fan bases from everywhere. It feels like every group has a rabid fan base now, which is insane, because I don't think that we were aware of that before. And with the reactions, I think it has helped bands. And shout out to all of you that comment on every single video. You guys are nuts. And I appreciate you guys for that, because that makes great music come to life for everybody. So that's amazing, and the fact that they're willing to go on YouTube, search for new reactions every day, and comment is insane. But they have hundreds and hundreds of people doing it. So anyways, you have this positive confirmation loop where then, okay, now they're doing another Band-Maid one. They're doing another one, because I have the same commenters on every single Band-Maid video. It's insane. But it's not just like 20 people. It's like 100. And then they watch them again. And like I said, that just creates a positive feedback loop when it comes to that. Now, the other what was the other part of your question? Sorry.
No, just you're a lot closer to the band, and with the degree of you've done interviews with some of the people that have kind of had a closer experience to them. Do they have a take on the whole scene, or what's that experience been like being at the shows? I know you had some cool interviews you did with some guys, and I don't know what connection you've had with the actual band, if any, but what's that been like?
Well, even so, how we're talking about the band, like caring about the fans and stuff. The management team also cares about the fans, because one thing that came up in discussing with the touring manager was the fact that they want to make sure that everything's good. They asked us, is Imaginai time too long? We're like, no, we want to hear them talk more. Everyone loves the part where they're interacting with the crowd, and they were nervous about it. They're like, oh, is that too boring? Like, should we cut that down? Or
what
like,
is that? Sorry, just for my.
That's where Miku comes out.
Where Miku pumps up the crowd.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's where she pumps up the crowd and gets everybody going. And so it's from the ground up. You know how it is. The management gives a damn. Everybody else is going to give a damn. Like everybody is like that. So I think with the fans, I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry, but with the fans, they're when they're there, it's just a positive experience going all around. I don't know if that answered your question, but
there is this sweet insecurity to the band that comes up over and over again, like that whole thing. Is this too long? I remember reading, and I don't know how true this is, but I remember reading somebody talking about, apparently Konami went on Twitter and said, do people find guitar solos boring? Should I stop doing guitar solos in songs? And it's like, Jesus Christ, you're one of the best guitarists in rock right now. Like, why would you be insecure about that? Like, but apparently she was like, maybe people don't like my solos and maybe I should stop doing them. It's kind of adorable.
I know why she asked that question, because Konami considers herself a composer first, a musical composer. So I thought when she put out that tweet, it was really cool of her to do that. You could tell she's a producer. She's a writer. She writes everything on piano. And when she writes everything on piano, that includes like melody lines for vocals and progressions and stuff. And the fact that she writes a lot of these songs through piano first, I think is why these songs are so great. Because when you split them up, the amazing thing about these songs, we can solo the guitar track and you're like, this makes absolutely no fucking sense by itself. And then you put Psyche's vocals in it. I remember I've done a lot of guitar parts where I will do the leads of her vocal line. I'm like, this is a very complex vocal line. Like, this is insane. And the only other person, whether you hate or love him, Eddie Vedder is the only person I could think of that had these complex vocal lines where it was just like jumping octaves, going through sweeps, and like just very musical. And then because I wasn't a fan of Psyche's vocals at first, but when I started getting into the melodies, I'm like, oh my God, this is very intricate, the way that she's jumping through phrases and stuff like that, and how complex, and nothing repeats on top of that, which is just insane when you break it down even further.
as
Well,
some as somebody. Oh, sorry, you go for it, Si.
I was just gonna say I wanted to follow that up with like, talking about one of the reasons that I was very drawn to Band-Maid musically, is related to that, because there is this sort of adorable kind of seeming, at least on the surface, insecurity to like are we good enough? Do you like us enough? That kind of thing. But underneath that, if you actually listen to the music, there is this angry edge, even in their nicest songs, even in their most upbeat, happy songs. There is this angry edge to them that, like, I mean, Blooming is like probably one of their most poppy, upbeat songs, and it is about fuck you, you don't get to tell me what to do, right? I mean, it is. There's this edge underneath it, and when my wife and I were listening to the song "Daydreaming," which it's one of both of our favorite songs of theirs, and it's a song about like we're breaking up and I'm sad about that and that whole thing. And then Konami's solo comes in and I was like, Konami's solo is a scream of pain. Like you have this song about like the sadness and sweetness of ending a thing. And then this like howl of pain comes in the form of the solo. And the more I listen to their songs, all of their songs have that, where it's like on the surface, this seems to be like this happy poppy song. And there'll just be this aggressive, angry growl. And I brought up Blooming because if you listen to Blooming, if you listen to especially the bass of it, the bass is growling like a beast in that song. Underneath this sort of high like poppy vocals and the high poppy guitar, and then the bass is just sitting underneath it, just growling at you the entire time. And I think that's in contrast to the sort of like sweet insecurity that is the surface level of them. There's this thing underneath which is like, fuck you, you don't get to tell us what to do, and there's this monster growling underneath.
This is making me smile big time because I think my first experience with him was, I think it was Thrill. I think it was. I can't remember now, but I think it was. And I remember a lot of comments coming in saying, oh, they hadn't written that song. This was stuff that was kind of pre-written for them. And, that I think that happens across a number of artists where they have somebody helping write music and there's people have their thoughts on that. But what I think, at least what I've been able to do in quite a short span, I had a back catalogue of music to look at, is I've been able to see them evolve, not only to just writing their own material, but make certain musical choices, which I am very, very happy with. And as somebody who has created a whole channel and spent many, many, many years trying to make my ears undo all the hard work of mixing engineers and mastering engineers, they must hate me because what I'm trying to do is separate things and push distance and draw attention to certain elements, which is the opposite of what mixing and mastering is trying to give you this cohesive product. And what I've noticed them start to do more and more so is have these choices that I deem as live music choices. They're recording things in a way and putting them out on an actual recording that has a live, edgy feel to it. Nothing feels overly polished. They aren't scared to let the cymbal wobble and let it ring. They aren't scared to have some of the buzz of hitting the string a little early and having the pick sound on it. They aren't scared of having some of that rawness that you would feel when you go to a live show. And I think that is one indicative of an older generation style of music where that wasn't a choice. That was saturation, that was tape, that was live, that was trying to record 4 instruments onto one track and then use that one track to record another 2, and it just had to happen. There was bleed, there were things that shouldn't have been there. They are making musical choices that show a sign of maturity far beyond anything I can imagine for people of their age. And I think that's something for me that gets me excited about the future for them, because if they're doing that now, what are they going to be doing in 5 years?
I mean, they just hit their 10-year mark, right? So most bands, that's normally when the success hits, is after 10 years is normally the going rate, is what they say. For any band, like you're just talking about Rush, they hit their stride right in that like 7th year mark, right? As a band when they were doing their thing and finally start catching on. And so this is perfect. This is their chance. And look at what just happened at this they're doing this 10th anniversary tour, right? They just played with the last rock stars with some of the most notable names like Miyavi, Yoshiki. I can't remember the other 2 guys' names, but big stars in Japan. So now they're widening their Japanese base. They're hitting the US again since the last US tour went so well. And I think you're right, Chase. Like, I think this is their year, honestly. This is their 10th anniversary tour, but they're just going to go up from there, I think.
Okay, well, I think, listen, we've covered quite a lot of ground with this, but it might be nice to do some final thoughts and some closing thoughts on a kind of give us as brief an introduction as you can as to your first Band-Maid experience, what your initial thoughts were, maybe what the song was, and then kind of
Oh God.
what you'd like to see from them going forward in the next year or so. I'll start with Ty, just because you said, oh God, and you started panicking, so I'll start with Ty. Ty, what was your introduction to kind of Band-Maid summarized, and where do you want them to go? If you could have a kind of wish or say in that.
I don't remember what I think Blooming might have been the first song of theirs I heard. I came in way after the whole Thrill thing happened, and to this day, Thrill is not one of my favorite songs of theirs. I don't love that song, but yeah, I think it might have been Blooming. And then for me, the most excitement I have is when they release another instrumental track. Like I listen to From Now On probably every day. I fucking love that track. It just pumps me up every time I hear it.
There's not a lot of groups doing that, is there?
No, it's just a great track. And where they go from here, I don't know. What I most hope for them is that they go where they want to go. That they wind up doing the things that they want to do. If they wind up like the biggest band in the world, I mean, that's unlikely, but if they do, great. As long as that's what they wanted and they're happy about it. And if they wind up like with like this fervent fan base that understands that they're this magical thing and buys everything they put out, and that is enough to keep them going and support what they want to do, that's great too. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, whatever they want. And I just want to point out that for me, first experience. So there's been a few bands that, and it's always, it accidentally comes together. You listen to The Police, and you wind up with maybe one of the greatest rhythm guitarists of all time. Just happens to be friends with the guy who is probably one of the best drummers of all time, and their buddy Sting, who's like an amazing songwriter and bass player, right? Like they just sort of all knew each other. And then you listen to like Queen, and it's like, Roger Deacon and the other guy and Brian May, and they're like, we need a singer. Here's this guy over here, and it's Freddie fucking Mercury, right? And they're like, come join our band. And the first time I watched Band-Maid, because I'm really into the music side of it rather than the lyric side. First time I watched Band-Maid, I'm watching Blooming. I'm going, this drummer is phenomenal. And I'm a rhythm section guy, and I'm listening. I'm like, this bass player is killing it. And then of course, you listen to Blooming, Konami solos 3 times in Blooming, and does that weird thing where she changes up. She starts tapping in the second verse and all that stuff. And I'm like, is this like a Police thing where we just happen to like a great guitar player? She just happens to know an amazing drummer, and she just happens to know an amazing bass player. And then I read the story, and that is literally what happened. And that just feels like it feels like such a magical thing when that happens. And the bands that come out of that are all magical bands to me. Like to this day, The Police, I can listen to The Police anytime. They're one of my favorite bands. I can listen to Queen anytime. They're one of my favorite bands. Rush was like that. Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee went to high school together. 2 of the gods of their instruments went to high school together, right? And it feels like...
Real quick, it's funny the bands you're mentioning, because there's such a significant gap in between the older bands you just mentioned to Band-Maid. That's what 20-year gap? That's kind of insane to think about.
Well, and that's why I got so excited when I started listening to Band-Maid. It's like, this is what I've been missing in music. They were bringing back the thing that I had been missing with a modern flair and all the advancements we've made, but still that old school feel of like, let's have a fantastic rhythm section, put some great guitars on top of it, and do some really catchy songwriting, which seemed like it had kind of gone away for a while.
Brilliant. Alan, yours first experience summarized, and then where you'd like them to go, if anything.
Can I ask Ty a question real quick?
Yeah, of course you can.
All right. Do you think now what you just said? Do you think it'll bring newer generations into that style, though? Do you think newer generations will appreciate it? Because
I hope so.
And I'm not talking about I guess what generation were millennials, I guess. I'm talking about will they get caught on coming up in the age of doing everything in your bedroom, producing music like Chase was just mentioning before? Do you think that generation will latch onto that style?
I don't know. I mean, I you watch like the live videos of the Band-Maid concerts, and there's a pretty wide range of ages in that audience. There's a bunch of people that look like they're teenagers, and there's a bunch of people that look like they're my age. So it feels like the audience has a pretty broad range of ages. But obviously, Chase is the marketing guy. He would be able to tell you.
Well, because I just want to bring this up. I remember my son came up to me. He's 15, and he's all like, oh, are you one of those like there's a TikTok that was going around saying like, oh, what the older generation likes, and they mentioned Band-Maid, kind of making fun of it, saying like only this generation. That's my son. He's 15. That's how he heard about Band-Maid. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, that's apparently for like old people and they only do it. I'm like, so that's the perception, for his generation, which I thought was fascinating that he brought that up. And that's why I always wonder. I don't think that's the case anymore. Like, because like you said, when I was at the concert in New Jersey, there was a lot of a younger audience there. And of course, now we're seeing like younger guitar players trying to cover some of those songs. So that's really good to see that kind of diverse now. I wonder if that perception will change now. But anyways, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No, it's good. I'm all about that conversation. Part of the excitement of what we're doing right now is exactly the effect that they have on the fan base. It's exactly the reason that they're so loved, is that people can get together and just talk about them for hours. And I think that that's part of the beauty and the effect they have on true music fans, people who just genuinely love what they do. But yeah, back to that, Alan, your summarized very first experience of listening to them, was it kind of on a video or was it just on your own? And then where do you think they're going to head?
Okay, here we go. So my first reaction came out in June 20, 2020. All right. And it was Domination. That was the first song I heard. Second song was Domination again live, which had a better interaction with everybody. I'm just looking at these videos. I did not like Domination when I first heard it. So that was the very, very first song. And I remember being like, it's all right. Eric loved it. And like I said, I'm almost like it feels weird saying that, because a lot of people would be like, we weren't even a freaking fan before. I'm like, well, it just it was new to me, and like anything new, you're kind of like, I don't know, And then for me, I don't like let it down. I give it a chance, and I keep listening, and it took a while. It took like 6-7 months, I think, before I actually got into Band-Maid, where I actually listened to the album on repeat. At that time, I was more Maximum the Hormone all the way. I was fucking sold. Somebody showed me Maximum the Hormone, and I'm in love with the band. I'm just pissed off that they never release music anymore. But besides the point, back to Band-Maid. So I think it was, Unseen World, when that came out, is where I was sold. That was the album, because it just tapped into my progressive side of things that I love. I love progressive hard rock. Like, I'm a huge fan of it. And Unseen World was right up my alley, where it was like, I listened to it on repeat and I just fell in love with the band after that. Now I like World Domination, which is hilarious because Domination was the first song I heard and didn't like it. And now that's one of my favorite albums, which is kind of wild to go back to. And I agree with Ty, where they're going to go in the future. I hope it's where they want to be. And I think they are I think they are where they want to be already. And I think they're just enjoying the ride going to the top right now. And they're enjoying like working on newer songs, putting out music. I love that they're focused on the music, and that's what fans want. And that's what we're used to now. They put out two albums almost every year. No, just kidding. But you know what I mean? They're putting out something every year, which is really great. A lot of bands don't do that. So
yeah, I think if their destiny's in their own hands, it's probably the best thing. Every band and artist needs a support structure. They need people like management to help them book things and get them playlisted and stuff like that. But the more, for me, I'd love to see them take even more and more ownership over kind of the day-to-day decisions, as they have done with their music. As they have done, taking kind of control over writing everything and just pushing in a direction that they, you take a chance, you take a risk. And I think that was really, really brilliant. And I don't know who said the quote, but it was something around the lines of the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I think that's what I want. This sounds a little bit kind of looking past, but I would love for them to carry on creating this blueprint in a world that is very digitally dominated. And yes, you do need competent digital platforms. It's a bit of inside baseball marketing talk, yeah. But the world is becoming more online, has done. COVID pushed that to a further degree, and there were a lot of labels who were kind of lacking in that. They were lacking in the ability to kind of keep showing live music to fans. And Band-Maid has been able to do that really well with their online concerts and things like that. So they've also then been able to have this amazing physical presence. They're going on tour, they're doing all that kind of thing, and I do think it's really remarkable. For me, that would be, to echo what you guys said, I want them to go where they want to go, but I'd love for younger artists to see that they don't have to kind of just follow a trend of whatever else is happening. You do get these outliers that are a little bit taking control over things and going, we're going to do it our way.
I think something to mention, though, I think they have a management team that's aligned with them very well, and I think that's why they can focus on the music so well. Most bands are struggling, and I'm speaking from like that Kodak perspective. We struggle as a band because I have to worry about so much of the digital footprint. And I think with Band-Maid, after talking to a couple members of their management, they seem like they're all in line with each other. And I think that's why Band-Maid can focus so well on the music. So I hope whoever they have in management is along the ride with their philosophy and mentality going forward, because I think it's really important to have musicians focusing on music and producing and putting together. And I think people nowadays have forgot about the benefit of being able to solely focus on one thing and mastering that kind of art and skill. So that's really cool to see a management team that has their back, and it doesn't seem like it's too rigid right now. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a lot more than I think, but it seems like they're doing everything in their best interests, which is really cool to see. Because I do think you need a powerful management team to back you up.
Yeah, I think all that behind the scenes stuff, it shows. It does show. What you can see is a band that just seems genuinely happy, enjoying life, enjoying creating music, enjoying being together. It seems like there's just a lot of positivity and authenticity within that. I think we've kind of covered a lot of bases, so I think we'll probably leave it there. But one last thing before we go, I'll put you on the spot here. You get one word, and only one word. Band-Maid is. Go for it, Ty.
For me, Band-Maid is Misa.
Those two words. No, I was kidding. Amazing. I don't know. Phenomenal. Amazing. There, I'm gonna a lot of words.
I'll go with undeniable. Guys, I really appreciate you taking the time, as I mentioned. Hopefully we'll get to do more of these if you are keen, and hopefully the people like it, maybe we can get some preloaded questions for the next one if you guys are keen to do that again. But as I said, thanks for taking the time to be a part of this, making time on a Sunday. I know that's kind of like personal time away from the internets and YouTube and things like that, but I am grateful, and hopefully all the people enjoy. So thanks.